The 21st Century Katsura-Harriman Agreement, the strategic implications of the Ukraine war, and the Trump-Vance meeting. On February 28, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held a meeting. The key focus of this meeting was negotiations over Ukraine's mineral resources, but ultimately, the talks ended in failure. At first glance, this may seem like a simple resource negotiation, but from a historical perspective, it closely resembles the Katsura-Harriman Agreement, signed after the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. This article analyzes the strategic significance of what can be called the 21st Century Katsura-Harriman Agreement and explores its historical parallels. 1. Should Ukraine have accepted this proposal? For Ukraine, this negotiation was an extremely difficult decision, but strategically, accepting it might have been in its best interest. U.S. interests equals incentive for continued support. If the U.S. had secured rights to Ukraine's mineral resources, ensuring Ukraine's stability would have become a direct American interest, guaranteeing long-term support. Beyond mere military aid, creating economic stakes would have made it harder for the U.S. to abandon Ukraine. Deterrence against war escalation. When a mediator country, the U.S., holds economic stakes, it gains leverage to restrain further escalation. If the U.S. had obtained Ukrainian resource rights, it would have had a stronger motivation to push for a ceasefire rather than allowing the war to drag on indefinitely. The consequences of a failed deal. Ukraine's rejection of the offer weakened the U.S. incentive to stay deeply involved, potentially destabilizing Ukraine's long-term security. If the Trump administration reduces support for Ukraine in the future, the impact could be significant. 2. Trump's strategy: ending the war by giving Russia a token victory? The background of this meeting reveals insights into the Trump administration's approach to the Ukraine war. Russia's war objectives have already collapsed. Russia's primary goal was to halt NATO's eastward expansion. However, with Finland and Sweden joining NATO, this objective collapsed early in the war. Russia is already in a strategically losing position, preventing Russia's total defeat. Trump does not seem to be aiming for Russia's complete downfall, but may instead be trying to end the war by allowing Russia some minimal concessions. By keeping Crimea and parts of Donbass under Russian influence, Putin could claim a victory domestically and justify ending the war. Reducing America's burden while maintaining long-term influence. If Russia were completely defeated, the collapse of Putin's regime could lead to instability, which might become a new burden for the U.S. Therefore, the most realistic option is to end the war at a point where Russia neither wins outright nor loses entirely. 3. Parallels with the Katsura-Harriman Agreement. What was the Katsura-Harriman Agreement? 1905? In 1905, Japan won the Russo-Japanese War and secured control over the South Manchurian Railway. American businessman Edward Harriman proposed a joint operation of the railway, aiming to stabilize Japan's control by introducing American capital. Japan initially agreed, but domestic opposition led to the agreement's cancellation, ultimately allowing Japan to dominate Manchuria alone and worsening U.S.-Japan relations. Similarities between the Ukraine-U.S. negotiation and the Katsura-Harriman Agreement. The U.S., as a mediator country, sought to obtain economic stakes in a war-affected nation to exert control over the situation. Ukraine's rejection of the deal weakens the U.S.'s involvement, making the future of the war uncertain. Historically, allowing a mediator nation to hold economic stakes has been an effective means of ensuring stability, but the failure of this negotiation may have eliminated that opportunity. Conclusion. This meeting was not just about resource negotiations, but about leveraging economic stakes to create war deterrence as a strategic move. Historically, similar cases like the Katsura-Harriman Agreement show that third-party economic involvement can help stabilize a war zone. If Ukraine had accepted the deal, U.S. support would have been guaranteed, and war deterrence would have been strengthened. Trump is likely pursuing an end to the war, not by completely defeating Russia, but by offering it minimal concessions to ensure a ceasefire. The failure of what could have been the 21st century Katsura-Harriman Agreement raises crucial questions about how the Ukraine war will unfold in the coming years.